Fellow Ambazonians, good evening. This is the voice of Dr. FLO, your humble and most trusted servant, the unrepentant patriot, leader of the indigenous people of Ambazonia's governing council. Today, the 30th of November 2022, I have decided to come and address a few issues post or following my just ended meeting with the Directorate of Security of the Indigenous People of Ambazonia's Governing Council. It was stormy. It was heavy in context and content. And all is not going well. We have, in the last few days, suffered some major blows as a people, indigenous people of Ambazonia. I have been briefed. There have been 3 Ambazonian Americans or Ambazonians who have been indicted by the courts or judicial system in the United States of America. And from what transpired in the meeting or the briefing I got from the Directorate of Security is that we have had even kidnappers, organizers of kidnapping in Ground Zero, being bold to come and talk against their fellow comrades, and even giving details of how they must have collected monies for kidnapping of a fund, and so on and so forth. Have we become so daft to the point that we have to comment on an ongoing investigation in this manner? I don't know those individuals personally, but I'm worried about the degree of bastardization of this struggle, this God-ordained struggle. Some individuals haven't learned when it comes to their tribe, their fun. The Ambazonia doesn't even exist anymore. They would say anything, do anything. Their fund is gold, and the funds and chiefs and leaders of other entities, villages, is nothing. This is pathetic. This is pathetic. We have leaders coming out, as I've been briefed. One of the things in some of these DOS briefings I get, I kind of like put or like get it registered in the minds of everyone who takes part in such meetings with me, or who feel it's time they should brief me, be it from the Ambazonia Intelligence Agency, be it from the Ambazonia Security Network, and top officials of the Ambazonia Liberation Forces. I always say, please don't give me names. Just tell me the facts. And then the rest of it should be in a report, in the form of a report, which will be archived. And the administrative unit of the ipoa-govc is very good in that. I've been told there are leaders coming out there and saying how La République du Cameroun is one of the greatest kidnappers in the region. So, because they kidnap, you also have to kidnap. How can we justify wrongdoing by doing wrong? How can we justify wrongdoing? How? Why? Yes, they do these things. Must we do them? We know of the recent case where Nijon Frundi was dragged from his house like a pig. No matter what, no matter his mistakes, we have a culture. We have respect of our elders. We have a way of dealing with situations. There is a limit. There is a line. When you treat senior citizens, no matter their mistakes, in the manner in which Nijon Frundi was treated, in the manner in which even the grandmother was recently treated, then you alienate them. You alienate the elites. You alienate a lot of people. And then tomorrow you will be the first ones, Ambazonians. We will be the first ones to come out and say and blame Republic of Cameroon for replacing our chiefs, for having their duos disrespect our culture, disrespect our funds, and so on and so forth. I begin to wonder and I ask this question: who are some of you working for? I begin to ask myself, can the center really hold? As you all know, the Directorate of Security of the Indigenous People of Ambazonia's Governing Council, abbreviated ipoa-govc, heads the Ambazonian Security Network, the Ambazonian Intelligence Agency, the Ambazonian Liberation Forces. They are completely against the chopping of fingers of Ambazonians. Worst of all, indigenous Ambazonians. No matter their crimes, we are a civilized people. There is a way we can deal with thieves. There is a way we can deal with local kidnappers and whatever. It's not by chopping up their fingers, asking them to eat their fingers, asking them to suck the blood that is oozing out of their fingers. That is not right. This madness started in Gokuntunja. It has now come to Mezam. And I'm really disappointed. And I've not heard a single leader out here in the comfort of the diaspora come out to say, no, you don't do these things. We have moved from killing ourselves, abusing our elders, manhandling our funds and chiefs, to now chopping off fingers of young boys, young girls whose only crime is poverty, who've made certain mistakes. And instead of giving them education, counseling them, because look, some of these people, they do these things because they're not well. They need help. They need help. You don't chop off their fingers. Even if you want to make them to be known to the public, you put their pictures out there so that people know them and shame them, and at the same time, help them, counsel them. I am getting fed up because we've talked behind and people are not listening. People who should know better. I get lots of mails, calls from diplomats Humanitarian organizations that have been working so hard to make sure that they can come on the ground and help our people. Look at the things you are doing. Look at the things you are doing. Some of the humanitarian organizations that we were hoping could come in there and pump at least 2 billion francs CFA annual expenditure. Now they are dragging their feet because of some of the things you guys are doing. Commanded by, I don't know what really their interest is. Commanded by, I don't know, people who just want to show power. There is power in love. You don't love power. You love your people. You show understanding. You educate them. You lead by example. Remember, all of you, commandeering forces on the ground, we are watching you. We are watching and taking note of the crimes some of you are committing. Among some of your so-called groups, remember, there are ipoans, indigenous people of Ambazonia. We have on the ground, among some of your groups, the Directorate of Security commands some of your members. We advise them. They are advised not to get into that kind of nonsense. And we get information from them. We have the indigenous Ambazonian Defense Forces within some of your groups. We have the indigenous Ambazonian 7 Qatarians. We have the indigenous Ambazonian Sokadéfians. We have the indigenous Mountaineerian Lions. We have the indigenous Ambazonian warriors. And they are watching. They are watching you. And they are giving us feedback. You will not go unpunished. Because that is gross human rights violation. Chopping off fingers. Then putting them on video and circulating it. So that some of us cannot sleep. I, for example, I work a lot within the sphere of the humanitarians, within the sphere of education and diplomacy. Even though I created the ipoa-govc, I still allowed the voices that called for a Directorate of Security. And I'm not an expert in that. I'm not an expert in self-defense and security. I've, for decades, done humanitarian work. I'm a philanthropist. I'm an educationist. And I'm now venturing my skills for the sake of peace, freedom, justice. I'm now venturing and putting all the energy and the knowledge I have in doing diplomatic work to get our sovereignty restored. As per the wishes of 80 to 90% of our people. I'm your voice. But I'm not happy because there are things which we are doing on the ground and in the diaspora which are not reflective of who we are. I want to go to another point. I want to shame some of you. Shame to you, Ambazonians, who want to, as you say, as you think, to remain undefiled. And so you have decided to retain that slave name Anglophone, Northwesterner, Southwesterner, dogs, rats, fools. I want to shame you. I want to shame you because you've not been, you've let us down. Just because you want to protect your businesses, just because you want to protect your stomachs, one may understand, but you don't have to give up, especially in the sphere of humanitarian work. I know the actions of some Ambazonians have alienated many of you. But you must think of the bigger picture, the bigger goal. And to our fellow Ambazonian comrades, there are consequences when you alienate those who have a different opinion. For example, our people are suffering in the prisons and dungeons of La République du Cameroun, in Kondengui, in Douala, in other areas, and even in Boya and Bamenda. They are not being aided as much in Kondengui and those areas and those different prisons by the so-called Anglophones or Federalists. Ambazonian diehards, hardliners, you can't go to those areas. You can't have access to those prisons. You can't present yourself as, I am an Ambazonian, I've come to see the Naira 10. I've come to see indigenous Ambazonians locked up in your prisons. You will be picked up. You will be picked up. You wouldn't even brandish your Amba ID or passport to say you've come here to see your people that have been falsely imprisoned. You would just add to the numbers. Be it at Boya, Bamenda, or Kondengui in Yaoundé. We can't visit them. You and I can't visit. And that's why, even though we deem the Federalists and those who believe who still think they are Anglophones, who still prefer to be slaves in that system, even though we deem them as cowards and to a greater extent as traitors, because some of them are traitors, that's true. But those who have not called for the killing and slaughtering and supported and abated the colonial powers in their acts of evil, we all have to give them a chance, because they all have a role. Use these fellow Ambazonians. We need to use these so-called Anglophones or Ambazonian Anglophones with wisdom. And if we do that, we will all win. Because they can go to places that we can't go. You as a fellow Ambazonian can't go in there. Don't expect Comrade Cho Ayaba, Dr. Akwanga, Comrade Sako to come to Yaoundé and visit our people in prison. Don't expect all other leaders out there, Dabni Yerima, and many other leaders to come to Douala, Oboya, or Bamenda to visit our own. A lot of them are suffering. They are sick. Some are dying. Why? Because we've alienated those who are so weak and so scared of the occupiers. We've made them become so scared of even visiting their own towns and villages. Some of you leaders, Some of you activists need to go to some other nations, recently liberated countries, and see what liberators did with those who did not support their stance publicly, at least. They used them. They made sure they also paid at least 10% of their income to support the revolution. And they were allowed to come home, move about freely, and brought information, vital intel. And so I say, we must be wise. Some of you leaders have presented reports to the ipoa-govc on your take about the Canada meetings. And a good number of you have been contacting my office and other senior executive leaders of the ipoa-govc on our stand vis-a-vis the recent Canada meetup. Frankly speaking, IPONs, indigenous people of Ambazonia, we would be the ultimate deciders. IPONs, indigenous people of Ambazonia, IPONs would be the ultimate deciders. And as the leader of the ipoa-govc, the governing council that governs all indigenous people of Ambazonia, we will reject or endorse any proposals coming from any kind of so-called rainbow coalition movement. Remember, fellow Ambazonians, remember, IPONs are the real owners of Ambazonia. When I talk of IPONs, I mean indigenous people of Ambazonia. We are everywhere, including the alleyways of our cities, our towns, our villages, our neighborhoods. Ambazonian Cameroonians can hold 10,000 meetings, but their outcomes have no bearing on us IPONs, nor the ipoa-govc. I say this and I mean it. Thank you for listening. Remain blessed. Short live the struggle, long live Ambazonia. Goodbye.